Welcome, guys, to another episode of Hidden Gems with me, your host, Natasha Parker. We are gonna help some people get unstuck in dating today, and I'm really excited to have Katie Lloydd on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Katie, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you too. Can you please intro yourself for the Hidden Gems crew?
Of course. My name is Katie Lloydd, and I am COO at The BEVY, a bespoke matchmaking service here in New York, LA, Miami, San Francisco. And yeah, it's all in-person dating.
In-person dating. IRL.
It's not an app.
It's not an app. And you also are a yoga teacher.
I am a yoga teacher and mindfulness teacher. And yeah, wellness is definitely a huge part of my life. And I think that it all kind of ties in very nicely when it comes to dating as well. Because I think, you know, it's important to just be well-rounded in who you are as a person before you even put yourself out there to start dating.
And that's something that we definitely resonate with, and something that we both talk extensively about is wellness. So the overview of this episode is going to be, are you dating well? Are you dating well?
Yeah, I like that.
Exactly. So, all right. So you're originally from LA. And then how long have you been in New York?
11 years now.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Does it feel like it?
No. No. I mean, at this point, I feel like I've been through so many iterations of being in the city. But yeah, it was only supposed to be a year. And somehow here we are.
Here we are. So did the BEVY start, the matchmaking service, did it start in LA or did it start
in
here?
New York?
Oh, started here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nikki and Greta founded this officially 10 years ago now in April.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but they've actually been doing this now for 14 years.
Okay, great. And do you see dating trends, differences between LA and New York? It's such a conversation that people have. So do you see different dating trends between the two cities?
You know, I actually get that question a lot. People complain about different things in both cities. But no, I think it's challenging in both in different ways. And so generally I would say our clients and the women that we work with come to us because they want to be more mindful about dating instead of kind of leaving it to chance on the apps. Not to knock the apps, because I know so many people who've met their partner that way.
Yep.
But this just tends to be a little bit more targeted, high-touched, a little more thoughtful.
Okay, so how does it work? If someone said, well, two things. How does the BEVY work? If someone wants to be on the BEVY specifically, or if they want to try out the BEVY, how does it work?
So it's all referral based. I wake up every morning to like a text, a DM, an email from someone saying like, you have to meet my incredible single friend. So yeah.
Guy or girl?
Guy or girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both are referral based.
Exactly.
Yep.
I would say like 90% of the women are referred. The other 10% will hear about us through something like this. We don't advertise or anything like that. So, you know, there are a couple like good editorials out there as well. But yeah, predominantly referral based.
Yep.
And then I just meet with people, usually over coffee, and learn everything about them. You know, everything from like their childhood and their relationship with their family to their dating history, like what worked, what didn't work, their goals, aspirations, values, like really everything. You know, what they're looking for in their partner. And then we set people up based off of their long-term goals and values and line up everything else.
And do you, so if you're talking to, let's just say you'd had a conversation with a girl, and then you're talking to a guy, and you're like, it's like something going off like ding, 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 wait, you'd be perfect for this person.
Yeah.
Is that how it happens sometimes?
Sometimes. I would say it's like 2 parts intuition and then 1 part science. Like we collect so much information about both parties. But no, it is really just like meeting people in person and sometimes getting that feeling that like, oh, wait, I sense that this is going to work out. I don't know why. It's like a gut feeling. But, you know, that said, I obviously can't predict chemistry.
Right.
It's more like this
be.
person said something and it lined up with this person and my spidey senses are just like going off.
Right. Okay. So I do want to say for our audience, Katie is married.
Mm-hmm.
She's not just the single girly doing. She's actually doing it. And, you know, they say like people who can't teach.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
I'm doing the doing.
You're doing the doing. You're married and you're also helping people get married.
Yeah.
With that said, you have had matches that have gotten married, right?
Yeah, all the time. We have a 95% success rate. So
wow.
Lots of marriages, lots of babies.
Mm-hmm.
But that also includes, I would say, a success for us is like anyone who's even been in a relationship for, call it 6 months.
Yes.
You know?
Because every relationship, I feel like you learn something, or you should, or try
100%.
to. And I'm like dying. I've been dying to ask you this. Do you think it's better as a single person to know what you don't want or what you do want, if you had to pick from like your matchmaking spidey senses?
I would say, good question. Sometimes I do think it's better to know what you don't want. And then you can be more open to other things. Like, I don't know, like what are your deal breakers?
Right.
I think are the most important things, or one of the most important things.
And true deal breakers. Yeah. Not like he has bad style, which we can change, ladies. Yeah. Like, come on. We can go to the store.
I actually hear that one so often. And I'm just like, okay, so like get him a stylist.
Right. But okay, so let's dive into that even deeper. So sometimes it's physical style, like I don't like that outfit, right? Yeah. But sometimes I think people mistake that for swag. And they'll say, oh, I like a guy with swag. I like a guy, which is subjective of what people think swag is, right? Some people, it is cool sneakers. Some people, it is a vibe, right? So if we're talking about deal breakers, being specific on those deal breakers, give me like one actual example of a deal breaker.
Okay. Example of a deal breaker would be like, I mean, the easiest one I would say is like, if they don't want kids. If you're not aligned on like what you want long term in the future, that's an obvious deal breaker.
Right. Okay. And you're in knowing like I do want kids or I don't want kids. So I only want to date people who are in this alignment with me. Okay. That is great. I also think location. I do know certain people. I mean, me, I feel like I'd live almost anywhere, but I do know certain people. Well, let me take it back. Almost anywhere with the right circumstance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I do know people who are like New York or nowhere.
Right.
So if my man doesn't want to live in New York or whatever, right? Or like I'm a beach girly. I will live in LA forever or wherever it is they are, you know? So that's another like obvious deal breaker, like location, right? Or no?
I think people are more open to it now these days. Because sometimes you don't know until you meet your person.
Right.
You know, like you might meet the perfect match and, you know, say he's between New York and LA and you see a future with this person, you want to start a family with this person, like, are you really going to let a 6-hour flight keep you from that?
Ooh, so y'all, location is not a deal breaker.
I personally don't think so. And I think that like a lot of people like will, not that they change their mind for love, but like there are already so many other factors that you have to think about when it comes to dating and choosing the right partner that I just don't feel like that one is as important. If you're both willing to make it work and you have like the flexibility to kind of go back and forth for a little while.
Okay. Do you see a trend of age ranges when it comes to matchmaking? Like people actually seeking matchmaking versus, you know, I mean, obviously any age can be on a dating app, right? But do you see like a niche age range?
So for us personally, we have clients in their 20s. We have clients in their 60s. Every now and then we have a client who's like in his 70s, but usually I would say like 60s.
Right.
It definitely ranges. I would say I notice there was like a trend that I noticed, I would say after wedding season is what I would call it, where it was like all the late 30s would come out of the woodwork.
Girl and guy?
But mostly for guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
After like, okay, we did the wedding circuit. Maybe it's time to like think about this. But no, it's kind of all over the map with that. I definitely saw a trend of like younger guys after COVID or during COVID that were being super thoughtful about this, who are like in their late 20s, early 30s, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. It seems like COVID definitely had an effect on the psyche of like, we may die alone.
Yeah.
the world
real.
might be over, and people were in their houses alone or in their apartments alone and did not want to live that way.
Right.
So it seemed like, I mean, there has obviously, because no one could get married that whole year, there was an influx of weddings and things like that. And, you know, it also, it's like 20 and 21 pretty much. People weren't getting married. So 22, 23, we're still on that like hype of like people doing that. And then the people who decided I'm going to actually get serious about this and then start proposing. So it's like 24 and 25.
Oh my gosh, it's been nonstop.
Right?
Nonstop.
So I'm sure it was probably better for your business. I mean, I know COVID sucked for a lot of reasons, but it probably ended up after being better for your business.
Yeah, it actually surprisingly did. We weren't sure what was going to happen,
right?
Especially because we are so much like in-person people, I would say. And so the concept of like meeting people over FaceTime was not something that we thought was possible. So in some ways, it's really opened up that aspect where I would say, you know, I still like to meet everyone in person personally, but like sometimes it's hard to get everyone's like travel schedules on lock. So it's nice to like, maybe start with a FaceTime and then meet in person.
Yes. Do you find that, you know, we were talking about wellness before. Do you ever find that people say, I want this, I want this, I want this, but then when you talk to them and get like deep into it, you like, well, you don't really want this. Do you ever have that with like women and men when you're talking to them?
Yeah, 100%. I think kind of what we do as a matchmaker is like, I'm also kind of reading between the lines and listening for patterns of like what worked in people's relationships, why it ended, stuff like that. Because if they're saying that they want one thing or don't want one thing and they're constantly, you know, ending up in that, then yeah, I'm kind of like, okay, so what do we really want? And maybe we should like peel back the layers a little bit. I think another fun part to all of this is like, we're kind of a sounding board for like the men and the women that we work with. So we will kind of like talk through a lot of this.
Yeah. And do you ever recommend like therapy? Like, do you have a BEVY therapist? Like, well, talk to them first and then come holler at me.
Actually, that has happened once. There was a guy who was like just out of his marriage, and like we're like, you know what? I think a therapist might be great.
Right.
First. And then he came back a year later. Was in another relationship. Sounded like he still needed a little bit more work.
Yeah.
So no, it's definitely something that we will recommend first, because I think too, it's super important to like be in the right headspace for dating.
Yes.
Because if you're not, it doesn't matter how many incredible people I put you in front of, like you're not ready.
You're not ready.
You know?
Yeah. And what does that look like when you meet someone and you're like, this person, it, you know, obviously, like you said, you can't predict compatibility or chemistry or anything like that. But when you know that someone's ready, you're like, oh, she ready. Oh, he ready. Like, what's that? Like, what's like the beaming quality?
The beaming quality. Oh my God. So many things. I think whenever someone tells me that they've like taken time to reflect on their past relationship and like why it ended, that's always a good sign.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people kind of like tend to jump from one relationship to the other.
Yep.
Without taking time. And so that's when you start to see the patterns. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have like a set amount of time on what that looks like. I'm sure it's different for everyone.
100%.
But there's always, I think, a reason. Like there's always two people in the relationship, obviously. And so I think you need to like own why it ended. And it's not necessarily even a bad thing. I just think it's good awareness to have in general, so you don't keep doing the same thing. Because
it takes two.
Yeah.
And so a red flag for me in dating, when I sit down with a guy and it's like, oh, so, you know, when was your last relationship? And then it's like, oh, and why'd that end? If the first thing that comes out of this man's mouth is, well, she was.
Oh, yeah.
And she was. And it's like, oh, so it's her fault.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Like, but you were with her.
Right.
So what's wrong with you that she was all these things and you stayed with her? When men do that and they blame the woman, or a woman blames the man.
Both
both
men
people.
and women do it.
Both. Obviously, you know, I'm dating men. But
Yeah.
yes, when women do it too, it's like, well, he was this and he was that, you know. I do think sometimes if there was like he cheated or she cheated and I didn't want that, you know, obviously that's why the relationship ended, whatever, right? I'll still love that person, wish them well, but like, I don't want to be with a cheater, whatever.
Right.
Sure, I get that. But when it's just like the blame game of like, that's the biggest red flag for me.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, we were talking about this the other day on our social media. I agree with you completely.
Right. So is there anything else that you're just like, oh, red flag, this person they ain't ready, that we need to be looking out for the girlies?
Okay. So definitely that one, playing the blame game. Any other red flags? I think generally bad mouthing anyone is not great. I think empathy and kindness is super important.
Yes.
One deal breaker that a lot of people will tell me is like, if they're rude to wait staff or if they, you know, are unkind to like the taxi driver or something like that, like that's a red flag.
Yes. And you want to know something? That's such a, I don't want to say obvious.
It is obvious.
Well, but
it comes up a lot.
It comes up a lot. And I think that really cunning people, even, they know how to be great to a wait staff, right?
Right.
Even though they kind of suck. But I will say, so I'll take that a level further. Obviously, I do think that that's very important to just show kindness to anyone, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
But also the family. I think there are people who, if it's a value to you, I know people who they may not have the best relationship with their mom or dad, right? Because life circumstances, whatever, who knows what happened in their childhood. But again, that bad mouthing of mama or papa or whatever, it's like, that's still your parents, right? And if you don't mess with them, that's cool, that's fine. But it's also like to have like, and especially men and their moms, I've noticed when guys are really, again, they use words of loving kindness around the people in their life that they love or care about and or their family. I've even had a guy who had an awful relationship with his mom say, you know what, it's complicated, you know?
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
He's not like, she's the worst mom ever, I fucking hate her. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Right. So
I think it comes down to like awareness too. You know, like I think someone who's conscious to the fact that like everyone's kind of going through their own thing. Again, still not playing the blame game.
Right.
That they're less likely to like badmouth people regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
I'm big on kindness.
Having kindness. But, and so with going along with dating well, it's like, I also think, and this is something I think in yoga that we learn too, how you treat yourself, that little voice in your own head. If you in your own head are like, oh, I'm so dumb. Oh, I shouldn't have did that. And beating. It's also easier to beat someone else up.
Right.
Because you're also not being kind to yourself. And that's where in dating and being ready to put yourself out there, I think it's so important to also have that inner dialogue that's a positive voice. And it's not just about, finding the person. It's about finding the person and keeping the person and also being happy with who you are. Because no one's going to fill your cup.
It takes work.
It takes
at the end of the way. And you know what also, I love what I do because I get to meet so many incredible people, both men and women. But something that I've realized through this process is like, everyone has their stuff. Everybody has their stuff.
Yep.
And so when you do choose your person, like it's really just comes down to like, who do you want to work through that stuff with, and who are you going to be patient with and have compassion for on this journey? Because it's a long journey.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you're not just meeting someone for the shiny parts.
No.
You're also meeting someone with their stuff.
100%.
Oof.
Nobody's perfect.
Oof. That's just, it's deep. And
yeah.
And I think, you know, are your parents still together?
No.
Your parents are not together.
Mm-hmm.
My parents
But they're friends now.
They're friends now.
Yeah.
Because you have, how many siblings? You have?
I have 6 sisters.
6 sisters, all by your mom and dad?
No. It's like 2 half, 2 full, 2 adopted.
Okay. And so your full sisters with your mom and dad, how has that, or do you think, affected your relationships?
Oh, how much time do we have?
We're getting into it. I know.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Good question. It definitely played a role in my relationships early on and even now. And I think that it's taken me personally like a lot of unlearning. You know, I used to have a super anxious attachment style.
Yes.
Which, if anyone has divorced parents, you may be in that boat too. But that's something that I've like worked on over the years. And thankfully I have a partner who's super secure, who kind of was able to pull me into a more secure state where now that's no longer an issue.
Right.
But no, there are so many ways where that has played into it. That said, I think sometimes people will tell me that, you know, they want to be with somebody whose parents are like still together.
That's even a requisite. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Men and women both. Sometimes, not always.
Yeah. But I never thought about that. Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I just want somebody who has a similar family dynamic to me. And if their parents are still together, they're like, I want, you know, preferably that their parents are still together, which I get. But I also think that like there are people who you can't control what your parents are doing, you know, like, and, you know, if they got divorced, whatever. I think it's more important that you're like willing to do the work to make sure that it doesn't bleed into your relationships.
Yes. And let's unpack that for a second. The reason why I say that is because through therapy for myself, I've realized that my parents are still together. And I've seen them work through so much stuff. And my parents, they still love each other very much. They still sleep in the same bed. You know, they're parents that are still together, but they sleep in different rooms.
Right.
They actually just cohabitate.
100%.
They're just besties and like doing whatever the hell they want.
Or they're not besties and they're just sticking it out for the kids.
Or they're just sticking it out for the kids. Or the kids are gone and they're just like, well, this is just who I'm going to do life with and we hate each other and we're miserable. But like we want to be miserable. Whatever.
And I've seen that affect people too, where they're like, my parents clearly didn't love each other. They stayed together. And like, I kind of wish they did because I grew up around that energy.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so sometimes even though they're together, you're seeing people work through things when they probably would have been better off with someone else.
Right.
You know, and my parents, you know, I had like a really long relationship in my 20s. And I just was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, because this is what people do. I saw my parents do it. Like, I mean, he's not perfect, but he'll get there. And like, I'm not perfect, but like, we'll get there because you just work through things. And little did I know, I'm like, wait. And now I look back, I'm like, that wasn't my husband. Why was I going through all these hoops and jumping through all these hoops for this person who was not my husband, right? And not saying that you have to also do that if it is your husband, but there's a certain level of commitment that's deeper than just like, you're my boyfriend, you're my situationship, you're whatever. And I think that, you know, even having your parents together and seeing people go through things, you almost have a false sense of like what you should take. And I feel like I would let guys dump on me because things aren't always perfect.
Right.
And from my understanding of my parents' relationship in the beginning, it was not perfect. And they had to work on a lot of things. And now that I'm older and I like get to see them together, I'm the youngest. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, they went through some shit, but like they good now. Yeah. And so that was my understanding of relationships. In the beginning, you may go through some shit, but you'll get through it. And I'm like, wait, but I'm older now and I'm a full person. I don't have to go through all the shit for years with someone.
And both people have to be willing
right
to own their shit.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. If you're the only one who's like putting up with all of it, that's just, I mean, it's not healthy.
I know. Trust
you
me.
know?
I know. I know.
It's not fair to you.
It's not fair.
And that's again going back to like your deal breakers and what you're going to put up with, knowing that ahead of time, now you've had that relationship and you can, if you know now that if that comes up in a new relationship that you don't have to put up with it,
Yes, yes, yes. So how do we have an open mind about dating? How would you say that someone should... I'm tired. I'm done. I don't want to no more. Men suck. Whatever. Women suck. Like women suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are some tools that we can do to kind of switch that on?
That's a good question. I would say one thing is maybe like not putting so much pressure on dating in general. And, viewing each date as just like an opportunity to meet someone new.
Right.
Maybe you'll learn something about yourself. Maybe you'll learn something about what you do or what you don't want in a relationship. So just taking the pressure off dating of like, is this going to be the one? Is this my person? Because then you can just be and the other person can just be. And I know that sounds kind of silly and woo-woo maybe, but like, I don't know. I think it like creates a more fun, playful, exploratory date at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think too, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say your mindset around it. You said that earlier in the podcast. You said something about like wanting to date. Like you have to want to date, because I just went to like, I'm so busy. I don't want to waste my time meeting, blah, 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 blah,
right, doing
whatever. And I don't actually like him. That's what people, because I'm so busy.
Right.
But when you date, you have to take time to actually, gotta kiss a lot of frogs.
Yeah. But
gotta kiss a lot of frogs, honey.
But they don't have to,
but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, maybe
a lot of the wrong ones to find the right one.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe that person you went on a date with, maybe they're not for you, but maybe they're for a friend of yours. That's good dating karma.
So weird. Katie, I think that's so weird. I've actually had friends be like, I met this guy, it didn't work. It wasn't like I think you would like him. And I'm like, what?
That's good dating karma. I've seen it happen. I've made setups where maybe they weren't a good match for each other for whatever reason. And they both introduced each other to their best friends, which I think is such a compliment personally, because I think it speaks like the quality of the people that we work with.
Right.
And that it really just came down to chemistry. And they're still friends now, which I love.
What?
Yeah. Like she told me like she went to his wedding and like, yeah.
Look, if y'all listening to this, don't do that to me, okay? I'm gonna be like, girl, no. You didn't want him, I don't want him either. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Because there's so many, there's so many little things. Like, I think at the end of the day, especially if you're not meeting through a matchmaker, you're just meeting through the app or through friends or whatever. Maybe you just weren't aligned on something.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're a bad person.
I will say, and I say this to my sister too. Well, I say this, my like, practice is my words, and what I always say to friends is it's all practice. It's all practice, because you want, like, even for me and like dealing with my like feminine energy and like my masculine energy, and when I had to really go into being more feminine, it was like, I am going to use any opportunity to just be a lady, be dainty, be cute, be whatever. Yeah. And maybe it's going to work out, maybe it's not. But I'm going to use this opportunity to just practice my femininity. It's all practice. That. But you also may be going on a date with Brian, and you're like, he's cool. And then you go to drinks with him and his friends, and you meet James, who's his bestie, and he's even better. You know what I mean? Yeah. It happens. Now that has happened.
It's okay.
That has happened.
It's not personal.
Yeah. Actually, I went on a date with a guy once. Oh my God. I met him on the apps. And then he was like, yeah, my friend's going to come meet us, whatever. I'm going to like go with him somewhere, whatever. His friend pulls up. I was like,
no.
I said, oh, hey, friend.
Oh, no. Okay, yeah. Maybe don't do it right on the date.
I was like, what the fuck?
That's so funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, that has happened.
I think that could be like an after conversation, like.
So what's up with your friend, though?
Yeah.
No,
I think you're amazing.
I didn't do that, though. I could not do that. I mean, his friend was hot, period. But like, I I'm just too much of like a chicken shit to be like, because this guy was like hitting me up after that date. Like, oh, we're going to the next day. We're going to do this. We're going to that. And I was just like, oh, I can't tell him I like your friend more.
Oh, no.
I couldn't do it. I was, and I'm always like, if it's meant to be,
you're so nice.
I'm going to run into the friend somewhere else, whatever. And it's just going to be a vibe because I think that like it's all connected anyway, right?
So true. So true.
I haven't ran into that friend yet. But if I do,
I'll put it out there for you.
Yeah, exactly. If I do. Okay, so the correlation between wellness and dating. We were talking about this, and then you brought up the apps. Now, there's a statistic that I want to read for you that I saw that Forbes posted about the apps. It says the top places to find dates, 45% of respondents said online dating apps, followed by being connected by a friend, 33%, and the rest concerts, festivals, right? So online dating apps it's a big thing, right? Now, tying in the wellness aspect, it says that there was a study that they did that people who swipe on apps or swipe-based dating apps experience significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. There's a link between dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, feeling an exclusion from the world. And then also there's another study they did that people who do apps find that they have social anxiety and symptoms of depression as a participant of apps. As we know, everybody's not on apps.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that because when you are matchmaking people and someone clearly has come to you because the apps ain't working, you know what I mean? Before they come to a matchmaker, I think probably they tried the apps. Would you say most of your clients or no?
No, not everyone that I work with even has used the apps.
Really?
I would say. There's a lot of great people out there who are not even using the apps, men and women.
Wow.
For kind of the reasons that you listed. And then some.
Yeah.
I think that some people don't want to put their information out there in their photo and have people judging them off a photo.
Right.
Again, not to knock them, but like that's what I've heard.
Yep.
That's one reason. And then two, I would say everyone's kind of looking for something specific on some level at the end of the day. And it's kind of hard to tell from just a photo, their age, a couple funny curated quotes.
Right.
So they just know that they're like, okay, I'm not going to find my person this way because there are so many other layers that are important to me than just their photo.
Yeah.
And if they're funny over text.
Yeah. And on an app for me personally, and I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but I put the like one line because I want you to message me. Yeah. If you think I'm pretty, message me and we'll go banter. But when I see guys or with like a paragraph, you know, it's like, if I like what they're saying, obviously that entices me even more to say yes, right? But I think that because, and this is just my own thinking, men are such visual beings. If you like the fucking picture, me writing a paragraph of what I want and it's like,
message me.
Exactly. Yeah. Message me. So that's why I don't really put a lot there, and that's fine. It's a shallow place, a dating app.
Of course.
Because we're going off of
Because you're going off, because you don't have much else to go off of.
Right.
And I cannot tell you the number of people who have said, I would not have swiped right on my partner.
Oh, yeah.
But it's because they met them in person and they had that chemistry, you know, or there was maybe a mutual friend that connected them and told them why they thought they were a good match. So they already had more information or they learned it in person.
Right. My last two boyfriends, if I saw them on an app, I would have said no.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, also, I think
I met them in real life. But
a lot of guys aren't taking selfies in the same way. Again, not to generalize.
Let me tell you something.
But they're not on there taking selfies on this, like, at the same level that a lot of women are.
A man with a bad profile on the dating apps, I'm like, yes.
It's like when you're looking for an apartment and you're like, I've heard so many times where they're like, this apartment had the worst photos. And then I went there and it was a gold mine.
Yep.
And it was perfect.
Yep.
I hear that all the time.
Yep.
I'm just like, wow, maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you got it.
It's like the opposite of catfishing in a way.
Right.
You know?
Because the expectation is low.
Exactly.
But I always say, but is the equipment there? You know, you're like, oh, he still has broad shoulders. Like, you can see, like, you know, the stature, the physique or whatever. But, like, maybe the picture, like, it's, like, weird or blurry or, you know.
I mean, personally, my husband's not really on, like, he has a social media, but he's not active on it.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't even know if I'd want my partner to be super active on there.
Yeah. I think
maybe that's hypocritical since I'm on there.
Right. Well, no, I just think that certain men, it's about what they focus on, right? And I think and this is just my personal opinion, if a man is using their social media a part of their business, because I like serious men.
Yeah.
If you're using social media a part of your business, I think it's great.
Great.
If you're not and you're always on it, weird. Because really, what's on social media the most? Naked beaches. Right. What you doing with the looking at?
Why did you have to like that?
Right.
Like, just look.
She's in a thong. Like what? Like you got
exactly. You really needed to.
Yeah. So we agree on that. So with the dating apps and the matchmaking, do you find that the people who have never tried the dating apps has maybe a higher success of being match made than someone who is currently on apps but also doing the bevy or doing, you know, all the things?
Another really good question. I have to think about that. Yeah, I actually do, because I think that the dating apps and social media have given people kind of like this unrealistic expectation for what is out there.
Right.
You know, they're like, well, I'm matching with all of these people on the apps, but you're not going on dates with all of them.
Right. How many dates you going on though? That's what's important.
And again, I think an issue that I've heard actually founders of some of these apps talk about, because like I'll go to like panels and things like that, is that there is kind of like this dopamine hit that you get from matching with someone.
Yes.
You know? And so like I've met a lot of men and women who say that they're on the apps, but they don't actually go on dates from there. And I'm like, but then why are you still paying for, what's the point? What's the point?
Yep.
And they've admitted that, yeah, it's kind of nice to like, it's almost like gamified in a way.
Get the validation.
Yeah. Like when they're bored, they'll go on there and they'll swipe, not because they're being intentional. So I do think that clients of ours who aren't using social media in that way and aren't using the apps tend to be a little bit more open-minded.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
More trusting of the process, let's call it.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I see why also. That just reminded me, I have to tell you about a lovely lady that you would like to probably meet. And I have a friend who I recently spoke with, and she was talking about how she's just, you know, she had kind of a negative connotation around dating. She had just broken up with someone a few months ago. And she's like, she's on the app, she's doing this, you know, she'll message a guy, she won't hear back, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, but where are you meeting guys, you know, like in real life? And she was like, people do that still. And I'm like, girl, this is why you're so negative about it, because you're only swiping. So I think that it's really important, if you are ready for something, you need to be trying to do it all and putting
be in the world.
You need to go out and meet people in real life, because we're humans and we need human connection.
100%.
If you're and to your point though, and it's funny how I subconsciously do this, I only do one app at a time. I can't I've been on The League and I've been on Raya. I can't do both at the same time, or like Hinge. I can't.
I'd imagine it'd be really overwhelming.
I can't do both. And also, if I find myself like there's cycles where like I'll go out a lot, like meet friends, whatever, da da da. When I'm doing that, I'm rarely checking my app,
right? You
know, because I'm actually physically doing
people,
right? Exactly.
You don't have time to be checking your phone to the extent that you would if you weren't out in the world doing all the things.
Yeah, and I think that, and I know people who put the apps down and they pick them up, but that's okay.
Yeah, 100%. Take a break.
Take a break.
Take a break from the apps. I mean, I think that's like too much of anything, as they say, is not a good thing. Like, I know this is kind of unrelated, but like I'm actually on like a reading podcast detox because I was listening to too many podcasts and reading too many books. And I just needed a moment to like process the information that I was getting and integrate. So I think it's good to take a break anytime you're doing too much of anything.
Too much of anything is not good, is what they say, right? Yeah, I agree.
Especially if it's making you feel a type of way.
So if things aren't feeling great, then we need to pivot, and we need, it's okay to pivot. I 100% agree with you. Now, one of my favorite things to talk about ever is feminine and masculine energy.
Okay. That comes up a lot these days.
Yes. So first of all, how does it come up with men, with you, when they say, I'm looking for blah, 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 blah? What are they saying that they're looking for? What are these men saying?
Specifically as it pertains to femininity and masculine. What are they saying? I mean, it's straightforward, you know? Like, I want to meet somebody who is very much in her feminine. It's as easy as that. In the same way, women want to meet men. Not all women.
Right.
I should caveat.
Yep.
But yeah, women tell me the same thing. They'll say, like, I want to be with somebody who values more traditional masculine and feminine roles, you know? And if you're aligned on that, great. I think there are a lot of people who are trying to lean more into one or the other right now.
Polarities, yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time. It's a work in progress. We live in, I think mostly for women, what I see right now is like, specifically for New York, it's not easy to be out here, you know? Like, it is a very male-dominated world in general. And we're kind of like, I want to say almost forced to be in our masculine in the workspace.
Right.
And so sometimes it's hard to turn that off in relationships. So I find myself having to like coach both men and women on being more patient with each other. Because ultimately they both want the same thing, but we're not going to turn it off just because I'm on a first date with somebody, you know, or turn it on. Even though we want to. We don't, like, women don't always know that they can trust that a guy is going to be in his masculine and it's going to be supportive and do all the things. So yeah, I always just kind of tell people, like, be patient with each other. I'm like, when I met her, yeah, she was very much in her feminine, but like maybe the energy dynamic between you two isn't there yet.
Right. And the trust isn't there yet.
Yeah. You know?
Do you think that it is better, you know, when they talk about trust, some people, they say you have to gain someone's trust. And then they say, like, from the jump, like I'm looking at you like, I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't, right? And then there's moments where it's like, you should just give someone a clean slate and let them draw on it. Let them stain it or draw a beautiful flower or a heart or whatever. What do you think serves people more?
I know what serves me. I think everyone has, like I said earlier, everyone has their own stuff. And it might be harder for some people to trust people because of maybe they were burned in the past or whatever it might be. So anything I say, take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But I find that giving people a blank slate, you know, being open, you can still be cautious. You know, you don't have to tell this person your whole life story.
No one's saying be naive.
No one's being, exactly. But I personally think that if you come into a situation with your guard up, like, people pick up on that energy, you know? And I also think that, like, what you put out into the world is what you're going to get.
Yes.
So, like, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I find that it works for me to be super open and like accepting and all of that kind of stuff. And like what I get back is, I think, super beautiful from people.
Yeah. And also, there's an old saying that says, people tell you who they are every day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're coming in with this blah energy, then that person could be playing off of that energy, opposed to just this person. I mean, I've been on dates where, I mean, dudes have been like, yeah, like, I'm just here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Okay,
you know, and,
I see you.
Yeah, is it, right? Instead of me coming to the date.
No judgment.
No judgment. But instead of me coming to the date like, you here for a good time or a long time, you know, and then them having to, we're playing this game now. Whereas
100%.
they were very dishonest, and I was like, okay, now I get to decide if I'm here for a good time.
Exactly. And that's all dating, I think, should be, is like, you guys are asking each other's questions to see if like you're a fit long term. It's not rocket science,
right?
You know, like it doesn't have to be. If they aren't a fit, that's okay. Move on.
Yeah, really want to know what you think about when people say, when you know, you know. What are your thoughts on that? Because you've seen so many people get married that you've match made.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I don't think you always know.
Ooh. Ooh.
I really don't. I don't.
Really?
I hear it a lot. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, the people I work with, you guys know each other or know yourselves better than I do. Even if I've spent hours and hours with you, like, you know, hopefully know yourself better than I do. I think going in with that expectation of like, I can tell in the first 5 minutes.
Oh boy.
Is not doing yourself a service. You're doing yourself a disservice by that, you know? Yes. Like, I think that's a very closed off energy, personally.
Because you're looking for someone to fit into a box, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
That you
created. You don't know, like, okay, so this is something that Greta, one of the founders, always says, and I love it. But like, you don't know, like if you've been driving, call it a Mercedes. I know we live in New York and like nobody drives.
Right.
So this is probably not the best analogy, but say you've been driving a Mercedes your whole life. You know, it's beautiful. You love it. It rides well, whatever.
Comfortable. Yep.
You're like, why would I ever change this? But then one day you step into a BMW and you're like, oh, this is actually also amazing in its own right. And beautiful. But you would never know to even like give something else another try because you're so stuck in your ways with this Mercedes. So like, I think you can find beauty and synchronicities and alignment in so many different people. If you're like open-minded to it. Yep. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, cool.
It makes a lot of sense. No, it
like,
does.
You might have historically only dated a certain type of person and that's worked for you. But there might be somebody out there who's a little bit different, who maybe complements you in an even better way. But like, you won't know that until you give it a try.
And you keep dating the same.
Yeah, you just keep dating and maybe it's worked, maybe it hasn't. But like, I think just like being open-minded in general is a really good quality to have as like an individual in dating and in life.
Have you had someone say, we went on a date, it's not going to work, and then they end up getting married?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. All the time.
Really? Do you see?
I'm almost hesitant sometimes to get feedback back too early.
Yeah.
Because I see it happen so often and I don't want to mess it up.
Right. And do you ever... is there a trend for like guys doing that more than girls or no? It's like, it's kind of both. Because I feel like men
definitely do it. I do think women do it more often.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
I think that because I personally think that if a man is attracted to a woman, they will, you know, see it more. Whereas women, it's like, I can be attracted to them, but it's this, you know, women, we have a million icks. I feel like guys have just a few icks. Right. You know what I mean? We have like, I mean, they're like,
we're complex.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like he drank from a straw.
Right.
And you're
exactly.
like, girl, what?
Oh my gosh, I've heard all of this.
You know what I mean?
Let me tell you.
So I feel like women sometimes are just like, no.
Yeah.
Right? We're just so quick to be like,
no, next. No,
funny.
I've seen that a lot, I would say.
Okay, so I had a psychotherapist on, and we talked about this, but do you have an absolute dating do or an absolute dating don't?
Ooh. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. Absolute dating do. I would say a do would be to take a moment to be intentional before your date. Like, I'm big on like just meditating, breath work, that sort of thing. And I think that, say you're coming from work or something and you're just in work mode, like before you get to the date, take 5 minutes and like, just like breathe, drop in, like be present.
For that person.
Ooh,
that's great advice.
That's probably my biggest do.
That's a great advice.
Because I've seen it backfire when people don't do that.
They had a crazy day and then they're like,
hello,
hello,
and that's the energy you're bringing into the date. And
chaos.
Nobody likes that. Yes. You know?
Okay. All right.
Dating don't. Dating don't. Oh, let's see. I don't know why, but the first one that came to my head was like, don't be on your phone during the date. But that also ties back to being present. So let me think.
Right.
Don't talk about your exes the whole date.
Oh.
You know?
Don't talk about your ex at all. What?
Yeah. Like the first date, I mean, like, sure, you can get into it later, but at least the first date, like
no exes.
No
exes. That's good.
Yeah.
And short of, when was your last relationship?
Yeah.
Fine. But like,
you don't need to get into it.
You don't need to get into it. Yeah.
There are other things you guys can focus on.
And if people do that and they're not aware of that, change the subject. I will change the subject in 2 seconds. I'll be like, where is that waitress? Where is she at? Oh, I will spill a drink.
Or no, you could even say, like you can say like, oh, it ended because of this. Like, I personally prefer not to get into it right now. Yes. Like, I'd love to just learn more about you and like what you're passionate about and what you're excited about or whatever.
Okay. My last question for you. What is the mission for Katie as a matchmaker, as a wellness person? What is your mission that you feel right now for your life?
I would say I personally feel like I am here to cultivate a space that allows people to feel heard. And so that's what I try to do every day when I meet people, is just like hold space for whatever's going to come up. I enjoy bringing people together and, being at the source of people's happiness and creating marriages and relationships and stuff. But ultimately, I think it comes down to like just making sure people feel heard.
And you do that very well.
Thank you.
You do it very well. And for our listeners, Katie has hooked me up with
I have
on her from the Bevy. It did not work out,
unfortunately.
No, it didn't work out. But great guys, and I can say that, right? Great guys, but not my guys.
Yeah,
today
it happens. But I'm always having my wheels turning for you.
Yeah, so. yeah. Well,
we will find the one. Sometimes it takes a few,
Yeah, after this podcast, we'll get into
Yes.
We'll get into who we're dating now.
We love that.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing this. And where can people find you if they want to talk to you?
For me, you can go to Instagram, Katie Delisa, Dalisa. And then for the Bevy, it's www.thebevy.com.
Yes, the-bevy.com.
Or We Are The Bevy on Instagram.
Yep, We Are The Bevy on Instagram. Yeah, so if you guys have questions about this episode or anything about matchmaking, all that goodness gracious, hit me up, let me know. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to Hidden Gems with me, your host, Natasha Parker. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps grow our budding community. Follow me on IG at Natasha Parker and the show at Gems with Natasha. Hidden Gems with Natasha Parker is produced by Gotham Production Studios.